No one likes to batch paint. Or maybe some psychopaths. But we have to do it. And Papa Laborc will give you some advice how to actually finish bigger games. If you like to paint along these Massive Darkness 2 living stages, these are the paints you need. Also, if you are interested about PDF guides for Massive Darkness 2, check my Patreon page, more on that in the end of the video. Alright, let's get to it. My first advice will be set up a goal. Maybe just starting out in the hobby. Maybe you are good at painting a single miniature, but you really feel uncomfortable looking at the giant pile of unpainted miniatures. Maybe you have an unfinished army, or you are someone who bagged a lot of Kickstarter games and slowly drowning in the unpainted plastic. If you are someone like that, setting up a goal can give a head start. More importantly, a realistic goal. In the meantime, I'm sketching out my shadow areas for these boys, and I apply the paint as a zenithal highlight from above a 60-75 degree angle. This reddish brown will act as our shadow halftone, and where I apply less paint will be the darkest shadows. If you are new to batch painting miniatures, you start slow and steady. We are trying to run a marathon, and maybe you hate running and batch painting, but people don't like things that they are not particularly good at. And there is nothing wrong with that. Maybe you have an injury, or you are just very fat, so you can't run. Which, let's be honest, it's probably the latter. But if you have 2 pair of tiny hands, I'm pretty sure you can do the painting part. Paint as much as you are comfortable with, but do not only paint when you are comfortable with the thought of painting. See how wise Papa Laborc is? And we just began. Make a quote for yourself. And it's very important to make it realistic and doable. Let's say you'd like to paint 7 minis a week, and I'm talking about speed paint. So it's not like 7 heroes or bigger monsters, but a mob or a unit of your choice, like these stone guards for example. I'm a big advocate of doing batches in one go, so I personally wouldn't split a smaller stack into even smaller ones, because the more day you will spend painting the same miniatures, the faster you'll get bored with it. If 7 is too much for you, go with 3 or 4, but I wouldn't recommend going any less than that. Now I'm using Deathworld Forest and continue the highlight process with more or less the same zenithal approach, like in the previous steps, covering 80% of the previous layer. Now these guys are stone, and I'm using this slightly desaturated grain. I'm heavily influenced by the style of Big Child Creatives. I don't know who did this paint job for these stone guards on the Kickstarter page, but it's very cool that he used greens instead of greys. This way these are way more interesting looking, and since the whole mini is stone, we can do them quite fast, even if we put in some extra detail work. Okay, we set up our weekly goal to paint 7 mini. We didn't set up a goal like I will paint 100 mini in a month and feel bad when we fail to do that, okay? Don't set up unrealistic goals, because you will fail and lose motivation. Oh, okay, Papa Laborc. So you say I will have a fully painted game in like, what, 6 months? Yeah, thanks Papa Laborc, but no thanks. Okay, if you don't put in time, you will never have a fully painted game. Only unfinished ones. And that 6 months is going to go by, no matter what you do. Let's dry brush some Deathworld Forest on these boys by removing the excess on a paper towel, and give it a gentle round of dry brush or 2 to catch those raised edges. Stone is great for dry brushing, to get that extra dry dusty look. Don't be too hard on yourself. If you set up small goals, you may realize that maybe it wasn't 7 but 40 minutes that you did in a week, because once you finish one goal, you'll be more motivated to finish the next one. There will be times where things could happen outside of your control in your life, and you can't even finish 1 mini in a week. And you have to be comfortable with the idea that there will be times when you will fail. And that's fine. Don't look at this 7 mini a week as a tyrant, but a guide. And again, the number is completely up to you. If you keep at it, as time passes by, you'll see that you have more painted minis than before. Now for some more detail work, we reduce the highlight areas and add some texture to the stone guard with ogryn camo. This is the last highlight we use, and this will be a little bit slow process, but believe Papa Laborc, it's really worth it. Leave the lower left side with less volume, so we can put a nice little OSL effect there in the future. I know you are tired of hearing this, but it's all about the mindset. You become what you practice. If you are practicing making excuses why you can't paint and why you don't have the time, but somehow you manage to find some time to binge watch shows on Netflix and play video games or just doom scrolling on your phone, then let me assure you, you will be good at it. If you practice sitting down painting on a weekly or on a daily basis, guess what? You'll be good at it. Motivation will help you to start things. But you also need the best friend of motivation: discipline. Now, this guy is no joke, and there will be times that you are not going to feel like painting. Ask yourself, what would Papa Laborc do? I can tell you, I will slap on your tiny hand if I see that you are watching You on Netflix instead of painting. It's a shitty show for girls, and there is nothing cool about mentally ill guys. I hate that show. So I repeat this again. You became what you practice. Aristotle was a wise guy, and discipline is just as a skill as painting. If you don't practice it, you don't get good at it. Simple as that. And when I say practice it, I mean you have to force it sometimes. You're not going to feel like painting all the time you have the chance to paint. But you have to do it. But Papa Laborc, painting should be fun and relaxing at happy times. Not when you have so much plastic in your closet that the oceans would say like, oh man, I thought I had it bad. So get on with it. And once you start, you will warm up to it. And you will be very happy once you are done. Don't believe me? Ask your girlfriend. Am I right? High five. Okay, this was mean. You are watching a mini painting channel. A video about speed painting. It's obvious you don't have a girlfriend. Pick the right tools. Papa Laborc said this like 100 times, but we'll say it again. Get an airbrush. Oh, Papa Laborc, but they are expensive and noisy. They can be, yes, but if you spent like $800 on plastic minis a year, and let's be honest, you spent way more than that, you probably have like $150 for a cheap airbrush and a compressor. If that's too much for you, get a job, or even better, ask your parents for more money. The airbrush will save you lots of time, and it will also save you a lot of money when it comes to priming big batches. It's a great tool for speeding up your batch painting, and it's unbeatable when you are painting to a high standard when it comes to larger minis to create nice and fast gradients. Batch paint to a level that you are okay with. This is a side note to setting realistic goals. You can't paint everything to your best ability. You burn out faster than Granny's cigarettes in her mouth. Alright? And those boys are burned pretty quick. She smokes a lot. Remember, this is a marathon. If you give in everything you got in the first few miles, you can't finish the thing. You might think, no, I can definitely do this. I'm a special little snowflake. For your mom, maybe. But your monkey brain and body works more or less the same as everyone else's. If you set up in unrealistic expectations, you'll burn out no matter what. We set up these small goals to reach the finish line, and do not fail in the long run. If you paint every rank and file mini to a high standard, you will realize that now we moved from a 6 months hobby project to a 6 years hobby project, which is a pretty big commitment. Most marriages don't last that long, and your passion for one game isn't any different. What you are okay with is your choice, and don't compare yourself to others. But be content with what you paint. If someone says your speed painting sucks and they have less painted minis than you, don't spend time with those people, even if it's your parents, alright? You can lock the basement door anyways. The next thing, and it's a big one, the reward system. We reward ourselves for reaching our small goals to keep ourselves motivated. Now, to keep our momentum in painting our games or armies, the best reward we can do is to reward ourselves with minis we really like to paint. Not new ones, but the ones we looked at and bought the game in the first place for. Okay? You paint these as nicely as you want and spend as much time as you like. This is a treat for ourselves, and the best thing about them, they still count as one painted mini. This creates a healthy, rewarding cycle for our hobby, with the mix of boring and exciting stuff. We broke down the large boring stuff into small sections and have some cool minis between each small section. For example, with Massive Darkness 2, it's easy to paint the core game like that, doing a mob group each time, then do a big monster or a hero of your choice. And once you are done with the core game, pick some minis that you like to play with and exclude the minis you didn't paint. So you will be more motivated to encounter other type of enemies and bosses. That's how I paint my Marvel Zombies game as well. This is a reward system that works for me and might not work for you. Just be cautious with rewards because you don't want to reward yourself with a tray of Granny's cookies or you will end up looking like 2023 Papa Laborc, and you do not want that. So generally, don't reward yourself with food or alcohol or drugs. But if these are the three of your favorite things, then go with food. Or what I said first, with cool minis that you like to paint no matter what. Try to implement these thoughts to your painting and let me know if you are going to try this out, or let me know your method, how you trick your brain to make batch painting fun. With that, our living stages are done and ready for the table. So a huge thanks to my patrons who support this kind of videos. With special shout out to Cold-Blooded Dawn, Trying to Paint Minis, Jonathan Mosner, Glitchy MacCrash, and Panoman45. If you like to support the work of Papa Laborc, you can do that on Patreon. You will find some exclusive content and PDF guides as well. Or if you need a little bit of extra help, online coaching is also available. I hope the rest of your day will be as smooth as a granny's butt cheek.